Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, in that order of importance to myself. And today I'm talking about the Future Foundation, which was sort of a spin off from the Fantastic Four. Jonathon Hickman's run on the Fantastic Four began with issue number 570, and that ran until 588 before they said it was the final issue. Just before that final issue, in sort of in monthly in keeping with issue say 587, the Future Foundation was released as its own independent book, again written by Jonathon Hickman. This is an extension, or not an extension, it's part of that whole Jonathon Hickman run. The Jonathon Hickman run of Fantastic Four, as I said, started at 570, carries over into the Future Foundation, and then returns back to the Fantastic Four with issue number 600. Legacy numbering is a little bit weird on the Fantastic Four. As I say, it came to a close with issue 588. This issue here is in legacy numbering 589. And the Future Foundation runs for the first 11 issues, are legacy numbered Fantastic Four from 589 to 599. Future Foundation does continue on beyond issue number 11 all the way to issue number 23, but from 12 to 23 they are not considered part of the Fantastic Four legacy numbering. That's just the system of reading, so putting that into perspective. So the Future Foundation, it's okay. So the whole story with the Future Foundation is Reed's collected a group of kids. The earlier edition in somewhere in Fantastic Four, in the previous incarnation in volume number 3, they were introduced, and now they have their own book. Reed's assembled a group of very young, fresh minds to solve problems. And we're talking young. Valeria, his daughter, is only 3, and she's like a super genius rivaling Reed Richards. You have the Moloid kids, the bright ones that were rescued by Ben Grimm. There's the clone of the wizard, first given a name, either Clone 23 or Clone 32. I can't remember which one it is, until he develops a name, Bentley. There are other characters as well. There's a lot of characters that show up for it. And Spider-Man joins the team as somewhat of an instructor, and also as a physical force when need be. The idea being that these kids, because they have a fresh mind, they don't approach things from an older point of view, but just how do we handle situations and some new ideas that are forthcoming. So that's the concept behind the Future Foundation. It's in the middle of a 30 plus issue series that began all the way back to issue number 570 of the Fantastic Four Volume 3, when the Council of Reeds was introduced. So the Fantastic Four run from 575-88 is a lot of the backstory for what's going to happen next. There are complete story arcs within there, but they just have a temporary resolution. There's no absolute. And again, even moving forward, a lot of the stuff is put into blocks. Like this is a 5-chapter series called whatever it is it's called. And I believe that's more so for trade paperback, to make it easier to read a trade paperback. It is a complete story, but it's not. It fits into this much larger, as they say, 30 plus issue, 3-year extravaganza science fiction story written by Jonathon Hickman. It's a good story. It involves a lot of the Fantastic Four characters, as well as, when I say characters, not just the core unit, but also a number of their villains. There's Doctor Doom, Galactus, the Kree, Black Bolt. I'm just showing issue number 2 of this, which featured Doctor Doom. A very complex story. It can benefit from a second read. I've just recently reread the whole thing in sequence, discovering I'm issue 11 of FF. I don't know why. So I've been reading the whole thing in sequence, and it is a very big story that I'm sure that if I reread it again, there will be elements that I missed, foreshadowing, events that that had some effect here in the past, have something to do with a present storyline. Um, it was an involved but a very good read, a very science fiction fantasy read. I'm struggling with the idea of, is it a good Fantastic Four story? It is a good Fantastic Four story, but it's not. It's a different type of Fantastic Four story. When I think of Fantastic Four, I think of the quartet and their adventures and what they do, and how they explore and what have you. They are involved. This story cannot be told without the Fantastic Four, but there are so many other elements and so many other characters. It's like a grand story with the Fantastic Four as being, primary characters in it, but it's not focused strictly on the Fantastic Four, which is fine. I mean, you want to have different stories. We're approaching issue number 600 of the Fantastic Four. That's an awful lot of Fantastic Four stories. Having something different where they're a major player, but it's not necessarily focused strictly on the Fantastic Four, still makes a quality read. And it is a quality read, just right out of the bat. I will say that reading the Jonathon Hickman story is worth your time and effort. Trying to collect it all and put it together. As I say, you can read it through trade paperbacks, but you're going to be looking at over 30 plus issues to get the full story. So it is involved. It is good. It involves, as I say, all these Kree and what have you. Involves Black Bolt. I got a nice Black Bolt cover here. So and the Kree. And one of the things about some of these stories within the FF, Future Foundation, is like an event happens and you may be sitting here and saying, well, what's the significance of that event? And then you will get an issue that's a full backstory of that event. And in that issue, in that back issue or backstory issue, there'll be another catalyst to say, okay, well, to understand that, you have to go to a further backstory, and there'll be an issue about that backstory. So there's a lot of layers happening here to try and give you the full picture of the story. And as I say, because there are so many moving parts and so much going on, a second and third read is probably warranted and could be definitely rewarding. It's like when you watch a film for the first time and you enjoy the film, then you watch it a second time and you see things that you didn't notice the first time out and how they relate to the rest of the film, and you think, that's clever. So there was a certain amount of cleverness in it. So a very good, involved science fiction fantasy story. But it didn't stop there, because I found that some of the best elements about it were the more personal moments, the smaller moments involving especially the kids from the Future Foundation, but some of the other characters as well. So the Future Foundation, there's the tender moment between Valeria and Doctor Doom. There's the developing friendship between Franklin and Leech. There's the Moloid kids, who refer to Ben Grimm as the Ben, because he saved their lives, and we learn how they learn things through popular culture, and they have certain references made to that. There's the development of Bentley, who is a clone of the Wizard, and his development of both a personality and his growing affection for Valeria. So all of these smaller moments I really appreciated, and I would like to have seen more of them. But it's a testimony to the writer that he includes all of this stuff and does want me to see or read more about this while telling this grand story. So about issue number 11, as I say, I'm missing number 11, but I do have number 12 here. All of us, well, not all of a sudden, but the books start to merge. Between the Fantastic Four and FF. So you get to issue number 11 or 12, and then the books, as I said, we were reintroduced to the Fantastic Four with issue number 600. So issue number 11, legacy-wise, would be issue 599. This is issue number 600. It's actually a very good issue all across the board. There isn't reprints happening in here. It tells a lot of the story involved, because there's still a story going on, and some of the other little add-ons and whatever, but none of it is wasted. Sometimes when you read these anniversary issues, you will read a good chunk of it is good, and then there's some other stuff that's like, whatever. But I found that all of the material within issue number 600 was very good. So I appreciated that. And again, it's telling this grand scheme, end of the world type of thing, um, and it was a very good story. This is a good issue. I'm just showing this one because it's got a Galactus cover. So there you have your Galactus cover, because he's involved in it too in a number of ways. So it does come to a close uh, with issues number 15 of the FF and with issue 604 of the Fantastic Four. That's when the whole storyline wraps up. So part of when I was reading this is that you're supposed to read one issue, like either the FF first and then the Fantastic Four, and that's generally the way that it panned out. But sometimes I think either I got confused or there was a confusion in the release dates or whatever, because it sometimes seemed that I was reading one book sort of out of sequence. It's not a big deal because I'm reading them so close, but they really are sort of paired up. You read issue number 15 is the penultimate chapter to this whole 3-year, 30 plus issue story, and then 604 is the actual final story, bit of the story. And then there's a couple of epilogue issues that follow, but pretty much this is the end of that story. And as I say, it is worth your time to read, and you probably enjoy it. If you're into that sort of science fiction fantasy, it is on a grander scope, and it does deal with all kinds of different elements, but it was a really enjoyable read. So afterwards, FF continued, as did Fantastic Four. This is just a fun issue. This is like a situational comedy. This is Johnny Storm and Peter Parker are roommates, and it's a story. It benefits a great deal if you know all of that stuff if you've just read all of those 30 plus issues. It certainly, the humor will resonate a lot more. Without that, I still think there are humorous elements in it you would enjoy just as a pickup, as a single humorous story. But I think it definitely benefits from having all of that previous notions. As you see, Spider-Man was here. Spider-Man was also, as I mentioned, part of the Future Foundation as well. So he sort of filled in for the Fantastic Four from time to time. This was, I don't know if all of the comics at this time, but this is a 605.1. There is a regular 605, but this is 605.1, which is sort of a beginning type of issue, but it's not really a beginning type of issue. What this is a retelling of the Fantastic Four's origin, but from the perspective or the point or the alternate Earth of an alternate Reed. And in this particular situation, Nazi Germany won the war, and this is the four adventurers that were around afterwards, and their experience, and how the Reed of this particular Fantastic Four found himself on the Council of Reeds. It is an interesting sort of Elseworlds type of story. It's not necessary to read this for any of the canon in Fantastic Four, but I did find it was a kind of an interesting story. A little brutal, but it was good. So once the main story came to an end, that 3-year story, there was still some stuff to be written about the Fantastic Four and for the Future Foundation. And they went to Wakanda and dealt with some of the issues with the Black Panther. So a nice little Black Panther cover shot here. And most of the team came along with him, including the kids. And this is the issue number 19. And for a very hot half minute, the character named Anomi made her debut, and this book was on the charts for $25 to $50 a pop. Now you can get it for $2 or $3. So it's a very short period of time where she was very, a speculation, and the price of this book really soared just for a very short period of time. But then ultimately, Anomi, unfortunately, she falls into that classification of a young, brilliant girl genius, and there's been so many of them in the Marvel universe that beyond some of the stuff in the FF, I don't think I've seen or heard of her since. This is it's not quite the Maestro, but it's along those lines. But it's another Hulk versus Thing cover. I don't particularly like this one a great deal. It's interesting. I like the crossed fists and the different stylized nature of the characters, but it's not my favorite. And then, of course, there would be the final issue. Uh, Make a note of Nathaniel Richards near the top, wearing almost like a Doctor Strange type of levitating cloak or whatever. I don't understand this costume. He's got these ribbon-like things attached to his costume, and sometimes they move around like they are a cloak of levitation with somewhat of a life of their own, and sometimes they just curl around him like some sort of giant purple rib cage. I don't understand their purpose or their design, but there they are. So this is the final issue of Future Foundation. There was a second volume, but I don't know much about that because I haven't read that. So this was issue number 23, and the Future Foundation comes to an end, as does Jonathon Hickman's run. In fact, his final issue is here of the, again, yet he gets another final issue of the Fantastic Four, issue number 611. And he puts an end to this particular branch of the Fantastic Four. But they already know that there's going to be another Fantastic Four, and it's heralded at the end of this book that there will be another new number one coming up very shortly, uh, within the month or so. So the end of Hickman's run, but not the end of the Fantastic Four. And as you can see, they're all reunited. We're ready to start with a new batch and new storylines. So overall, yes, it is the whole thing. Both the Future Foundation and this tail end of the Fantastic Four are definitely worth the read. I enjoyed it. I will reread it again at some point in time, not too soon because I've just finished it. Um, so I will read it again. Did it have some problems? Well, for me, it did have some problems. Um, One of it was there was so many characters. There was too many. Despite the fact that it ran for 30 issues, there were a ton of characters. I really liked the kids from the Future Foundation. As I say, I would have liked to have spent more time with their development. There was development within there, and which makes me want to read more. And as I say, testimony to the writer for making that happen. But I didn't get more. I got a fair amount, but I could have used more of that. And other characters, they sort of fade into the background. Spider-Man takes part of the Future Foundation and as say active within the Fantastic Four, but he only shows up sporadically. Usually when they need like a little quip or one-liner, and they are pretty funny, um, and sometimes to throw a punch or cast a web. But he really takes a back seat, and I would like to have seen more of his participation in this. Same thing goes for the Thing. The Moloids refer to him as the Ben. He's their reverend, he's their hero, but he has so very little to do in this entire run. In the first part, from issue 570 to 588, he's much more a part, and that's more of a Fantastic Four style of book. But moving forward with the Future Foundation and the other 12 issues of the Fantastic Four that followed, he doesn't have a big role, so he's kind of missing in this whole story. And as I said, lots of other characters and stories, and I just found that there was a little bit, some of the characters you didn't get to hear enough about. One of the characters that you heard too much about was Nathaniel Richards. He's back in play here, and again, he sort of ignoring all of the stuff that Tom DeFalco wrote about him, and he's more humble and whatever. But again, he still has that same little, I know things are going to happen, but I really can't tell you about them. Well, then why? Why are you even here? I think it could have been written without him. In fact, the other thing is that, again, I'm not time travel, yay or nay, but again, this is one of those time travel things where the Franklin and Valeria from the future come back to this present to say bad things are going to happen. We got to do this now. And I'm not crazy about that kind of time travel. I thought they were well-developed characters, and there was some interesting dialogue between them. But I also think that the story could have been written without them. I think it might have been much more interesting if the characters going in, including the Future Foundation and all the members of the Fantastic Four, didn't have any idea as to what was going to be happening next, and that they were acting because they did some mental calculations and said if this is allowed to happen, then bad things will happen. Rather than have somebody come back and say bad things will happen if you allow this to happen. I do understand that there was some of it, especially working with Doom and some of the other characters that getting that future, that call from the future, certainly, help put some of those things in perspective. So maybe he couldn't have written it quite like this without that future influence. But I would have preferred it not to have the future influence. It didn't. It didn't damage the story for me or made it so that I couldn't read it or enjoy it because I did. And as I say, I thought the characterization of both Valeria and Franklin as adults from the future was interesting, and their relation and their conversations they could often be interesting. Just unfortunately, I'm not big on that sort of concept, and it takes a little bit away from it. Art wise, I really like the Steve Epting stuff, and he did a fair amount of the work here. They had some weaker artists work on the Future Foundation after a period of time. I won't say Barry Kitson because I like Barry Kitson's stuff, and he did some of that work. But there was a couple of guys. What was the one? Juan Borillo and Nick Dragata. And I don't know these names, and I know that I read some of the letters in the Future Foundation that really did not like Juan Borillo's work, and I've got to support that theory as well because I didn't particularly like it either, and I didn't find that Nick Dragata stuff. It was more of a simpler style, and it has a place. I didn't mind the artwork. I just don't know that this was the right book, especially coming off of the stuff from Stephen Epting or Barry Kitson even. So the artwork, it was a hit or miss. It was more of a hit, especially in the Fantastic Four, than it was in the Future Foundation. I'm just going to put this one back up there as well to remember that we're talking more so about the Future Foundation. So those were the things that pulled it away from me. As I say, there was a lot of good things I liked. I liked the relationship between Crystal and Ronan. I liked the intensity of Black Bolt. I liked the nature of Doctor Doom. I liked Galactus's involvement in the story. So, as I say, there were things that I would like to have seen more of, Spider-Man and the kids, for example. But overall, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the story very much. So, yes, I would recommend it. As far as collections, you're going to be buying it for the Future Foundation collection. It fits in with your Fantastic Four run. You'll need at least the first 11 if you want to do that complete sort of legacy type of thing. There's a number of different characters in here. A couple of new characters were introduced. Spider-Man does make an appearance, even if it's not as much as I would like to see it. You get to see, I've shown you a Doom cover, a Galactus cover, even a Black Bolt cover. So all of those characters are collectible. So there's a lot to collect, especially if you're into the whole Fantastic Four and their history and lore, because that's where you'll find a lot of these characters. As far as speculation and investment, well, from the speculation part, the only thing was the Anomi thing. But again, that happened like a poof, like a flash fire. Whoosh, it was over. So no more concern about Anomi. You can get that one for, as I say, $2 to $3. Seeing Spider-Man in a white costume, it's always people like to see Spider-Man in his different costumes, and so he does show up in a different costume. The white Future Foundation one, and I'm not sure if it's this one that's it's probably this one that's his first appearance. It might be in the Fantastic Four. Anyways, it's around this time that he gets into his white costume. But again, nothing that's going to say that you got to spec on that and invest in it. And as far as investment is concerned, no, I would not get any of these books encased in plastic. I would spend my money looking for sharp raw copies, and then if something was to happen, say with a Nomi or some the White Spider-Man costume or something, then you'd have a nice copy, a 9+ copy that you could then get graded if you felt like it. So overall, yes, read the darn thing. It was a good read. I enjoyed it. I think especially if you like the Fantastic Four or if you're really big into the science fiction, science fantasy type of story, because it is an epic story, 30+ issues. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. You can find a lot of these. I don't know if you'd be finding them in the dollar bin as much. You could. You could from time to time find pieces of it, but it's a large collection. But even if you don't find all of the issues in the dollar bin, you will find the other ones in the $2 bin or the $3 bin. It's not going to cost you a lot of money to pick up this entire series. That's it for me about the Future Foundation and the end of Volume 3 of the Fantastic Four. Next time, maybe we'll look at the Volume 4 of the Fantastic Four. In the meantime, be good to yourself, be good to others, and we'll talk again soon.